Good afternoon, and welcome to this agenda review meeting of the Nacogdoches Independent School District Board of Trustees. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that notice of this meeting has been legally posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Dr. Tyrell Groman will be joining us later in the meeting. To catch my breath, I was running. I would like to remind everyone that all items on the agenda today are for discussion only. No action will be taken at this meeting. Please join us in turning your cell phones to silent mode. All right. Thank you. All right, we will now proceed to public comment. Those wishing to address the board during public comment have signed up before by emailing a request or turning in a request at the District Support Center by 11 a.m. today. This revised procedure was included and made part of the meeting notice. We have one request today. Mrs. Susan Tickle. There is a 3-minute time limit on each person addressing the board, and Secretary Mindy Winslow will keep time for us today. Thank you for joining us, Ms. Tickle. You have the floor.
Thank you. I wasn't here last week, and I was hoping Dr. Groman would be here because I brought my readers. I remember when he was trying to read that resolution without his readers, and so I made sure I had mine. I wasn't here for that meeting, but I did listen to it online, and all the public comment and all the discussion, Kelly's thoughts and Dr. Trujillo and the mask mandate proposal, and I am so grateful not to have your job. I am so grateful not to have to make these decisions. I am so grateful not to have to experience the hostility that you experience in a normal year, much less the hostility for making decisions about how to handle this global pandemic. I believe that you are all sincerely trying to do what is best for the students and staff in our district, and I appreciate your service. However, I'm here, of course, to tell you what I think you should do. I am grateful that our students are learning face-to-face this year, and I want that to continue. I think we all agree that the goal is to keep our schools open. That's what we want. Every teacher I have talked to is excited to be in the same room as their students. I am excited not to be teaching physics to my 11th grader. I want him in school. At last week's noon meeting, several of you said that our surrounding East Texas districts that have closed have done so because those districts did not have enough healthy staff to run their schools. So to keep our schools open, we need to keep teachers and staff healthy. Well, how do we keep them healthy? They will appreciate the extra sick days that you approved if they have to miss school because they contract COVID. But that resolution does not keep them healthy, and it does not keep our schools open. And they will appreciate the $500 vaccine incentive you approved last week. The vaccine will almost certainly keep any vaccinated staff member who gets COVID out of the hospital, which is great, but it doesn't keep them healthy and in school. It doesn't keep our schools open. Those resolutions, though generous, are reacting to our staff getting COVID. What can we do to be proactive, to keep our teachers and staff healthy, to keep our schools open? What solution is injection-free, chemical-free, relatively cheap, and endorsed by the CDC? Masks. I know that you have heard all the reasons, data-driven and anecdotal. I listened to them last week's meeting, why masks help prevent people from catching COVID. Will a mask mandate...
Thank you, Mrs. Tickle. Appreciate you being here today. I think that'll take us to item 3 on our agenda review of the consent agenda. The first item is board meeting minutes. Were there any questions, comments, or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, we will move to the next item, 3B, Business Office Reports, and that starts with budget amendments. Mrs. Barber.
Good afternoon, President Fitch, board members, Dr. Trujillo. I'd like to begin with the budget amendments, and we only have one this month, which is amazing. NHS is requesting to move $10,450 from instruction to school leadership, specifically for the window coverings that we saw them, BQJ did it first. It's the film over the windows, and that's what that is for. Any questions on budget amendments? Okay. There are no donations, so we can pull that one. The investment report on page 23. Unfortunately, no good news there. Interest rates continue to be dismal. And then if you have any other questions on any other reports, I will be glad to take them.
When you say there's no good news on the investment report, we haven't lost anything, but we haven't gained anything.
No, that's right.
All right, any additional questions? All right. Hearing none, we'll move to item 3C, purchases over $25,000. The first item is the Boys and Girls Club. Mr. Martin.
Good afternoon, President Fitch, Board of Trustees. Administration is asking the board to approve a payment to the Deep East Texas Boys and Girls Club of Nacogdoches for the amount of $35,000 for a rental fee for the Nacogdoches High School swim program to use their pool where they practice and also hold meets. Be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Can you, or do you have an idea of that $35,000 that we pay? What does that cover? Does that cover transportation to and from the school? Does that cover just the use of the pools? What does it cover?
That is a usage of the pool fee, maintenance of the pool for the meets, for the practices, does not cover the transportation back and forth.
Mr. Martin, if I elaborate on that, yes, it's the fee for using it for practice and conducting their contest and practices in the afternoon as well.
Any additional questions on this item? Hearing none, we'll move to the next item. 3C2, Bickerstaff, Heath, Delgado, Acosta, LLP. Dr. Trujillo.
Thank you, President Finch and Board. This one is dealing with Board Policy BBB legal, which states no later than the 90th day before the date of the first regular board election at which trustees may officially recognize and act on the last preceding federal census. A board shall redivide a district into the appropriate number of trustee districts if the census data indicates that the population of the most populous district exceeds the population of the least populous district by more than 10%. Redivision of the district shall be in the manner provided above at board member district, Education Code 11.052I. Nacogdoches ISD has contacted Bickerstaff Health Delgado Acosta LLP for proposal and estimate to provide the services needed to redistrict the 5 single-member districts within Nacogdoches ISD. Bickerstaff Health Delgado Acosta LLP is also providing the redistricting services to the Nacogdoches County and the City of Nacogdoches. We're excited about this opportunity, and we've had some dialogue with Todd at the county, with Judge Sal, and also with Mario and the City of Nacogdoches. by coming together and putting this practice as a unification of the county, the district, and the school district, we are providing some full transparency. They'll have community meetings, we'll have a public meeting. This will probably be one of the times when we'll have an opportunity to sit together and do a public meeting with the city regarding the redistricting that may occur with regards to them. We have not done this since 2000, so we're looking at coming with a high-quality individual who are staffed to meet the needs to hold this redistricting conversation if it were to happen. It doesn't necessarily mean it will, but it allows us to look at the census report, and if it requires any redistricting, then Bickerstaff will meet with this board and with the trustees to discuss the areas that it may be affected. The approximate cost that we're looking at for this proposal, redistricting, would be about $28,110. It's a total of 102 hours that's required of attorneys and their staff in looking at the data and coming back and presenting that to this board.
Any questions or discussion on this item? All right, hearing none, we will move to item 3D, consideration of additional T-test appraisers. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam President. If I may direct the board's attention to page 112 in your board book. As recommended last month by administration, we have several more administrators who have met all the requirements for T-tests to be T-test appraisers, and we are recommending these names be added to the approved T-test appraisal list. Be happy to answer any questions you all may have.
Any questions for Mr. Martin?
Okay, so these individuals were from different schools? The process for getting these appraisers, because they met the criteria to be appraisers, is that what I understand?
Yes, sir. Since
And there was
last
no one from
month.
Brooks Quinn Jones that tried to do that? I don't see anybody from Brooks
These are
Quinn Jones.
additions.
These are addition to last month. These are addition to last month.
To last month, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
These
Mr.
folks-
Montoya, what we have is individuals that had to go through the training,
right.
that were not completely through the training when we approved it. The last group, this is a group of administrators that were hired new to positions or new to the campus and that did not have the T-test certification, and that's basically what we're doing, is approving these evaluators.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Martin? All right. Hearing none, we will move to item 3E, submission of professional development waivers to TEA for the 2021-2022 school year. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, if I may direct the board's attention to page 114 in your board book. This is a waiver requested by the district to TEA for 2,100 minutes of professional development throughout the school year. Those dates are listed below: October the 12th, January the 3rd, and February the 14th. Again, be happy to answer any questions the board may have about this waiver.
Any questions for Mr. Martin? All right. Hearing none, we will move to the item 4, the agenda review of the action agenda. 4A is first reading of revised DEC local compensation and benefit leaves and absences. Mr. Martin.
Thank you again. On page 116 in your board book, we have a mock draft copy of DEC local revised. What the legislature met this past year, as you know, and what resulted was Senate Bill 1359, as well as House Bill 2073, which requires law enforcement agencies that employ peace officers to adopt a policy allowing the use of paid mental leave health days for officers who experience traumatic events in the scope of employment. As well, House Bill 2073 includes those officers who get a paid quarantine leave. You have to have a paid quarantine leave policy for peace officers who were ordered to isolate or quarantine because of a possible known exposure to a communicable disease while on duty. So we have worked with your TASB policy consultant, Kathy London, and looked at other district policies this is a law that has to be implemented within the board's local policy. We have met with Chief Murray and her team, and we are recommending that upon traumatic event or isolation for peace officers, that they be offered or given 5 business days for purposes of getting healthy or recovering. Be happy to answer any questions the board may have regarding this policy.
During the special meeting, we had, I guess, House Bill 1359 would be included that as well. Am I correct? For extension of, in case somebody's work for this district and get corona, that we give them that 10 days extra, correct?
This particular item only addresses the need with regards to TASB with the peace officers.
For peace officers.
What we did was above and beyond. The state does not do anything or recognize anything that we need to do with regards to our staff.
Right.
And what we have decided as a board is to enact something as a measure for our staff, above and beyond what the state is requiring. This one is specifically designed for peace officers based on the update. Yes, sir.
I guess my misunderstanding was that police officers is not considered staff. That's what my...
Well, I believe the way they've addressed it is because not every school district has peace officers,
Yes.
and because of that, they want to make sure that in our policies it reflects that we are taking care of some very important individuals out there across the state that may or may not be part of the district.
Rightly so.
Yes, sir.
And
if I'm-
also, Mr. Martin, this is for the peace officers who have to be quarantined just because of exposure, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that resolution that we passed was for extra paid leave for those who actually tested.
Positive.
Am I right on
That's
that?
absolutely
Okay, okay.
You are correct. The other thing that this is addressing is a traumatic experience
Right.
other than COVID.
Yes.
So,
Any additional questions?
no, ma'am.
Can we move that to consent? Or do we need to discuss it again?
How does the board feel about that?
I guess consent is good.
All right. All right. Let's move that up to the consent agenda, please. The next item for discussion, item 4B, consideration of district improvement plan and campus improvement plans. Dr. Hill.
Good afternoon, President Fitch, board members, Superintendent Trujillo. This is an annual approval process for us, but we do revise both our district and campus improvement plans annually with the help of our campus and/or our district improvement committees. So you'll note in your board book, the first one is beginning on page 125, which begins with the district improvement plan, and you'll see those same standard 4 goals throughout each and every plan. However, and that's how we typically advise campuses, is that they take the district plan and then they follow suit. But you will notice that there were 3 campuses that added additional goals. Nettie Marshall was one, specifically paying particular attention to the bilingual students. Reggae added one, pertaining to health services regarding PE, as well as the fitnessgram, and then TJR added 3 for a total of 7 goals. And so once these are approved during Thursday evening's meeting, these will be posted on the district website under the required postings.
Dr. Hill, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. I was very pleased for not only the additional goals that were added, but most of our campuses actually added some specifics on how they want to achieve that. And I mean, I have, even if you haven't sat in these kind of meetings and how tedious, I know all of our campuses have specifics in mind. But I just want to relay how appreciated I am appreciative that they did that. Because when I'm talking out in the community, I'm delighted to be able to say, oh, do you know that we have campuses who have parent-community engagement activities, several times in the year? Things like that. That was really good. So pass that along to them.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much for the kind words.
Any additional questions? All right, would anybody be opposed to moving this to the consent agenda?
No opposition.
All right, we will move that to consent. Item 4C, consideration of nomination of candidates for the Nacogdoches County Central Appraisal District Board of Directors as representatives for Nacogdoches ISD. We are in an odd number year, so in an odd number year, the district elects 2 representatives to represent Nacogdoches ISD on the Central Appraisal District Board. Do we have any willing participants? Mr. Montoya and I are the current representatives, and we will both roll off in December. So would we have any volunteers?
I don't mind.
Mr.
Those
Montoya.
meetings are short. They don't last long.
What did you say?
I said I'll volunteer.
Well, in this case, I nominate you and Mr. Montoya.
No, I'm not going to go back on the board. I think the responsibility lies with us as board members. We all need to do our part, and I think that Pam has served very well on that board. I have tried my best to do what I can on that board, but I also feel that we need some new blood on there. It's about our money that we're getting for our district, and so we need to have investment in that. That's just where I'm at.
Mindy, would you be interested in taking Mr. Montoya's place as a member of the executive committee? That would make sense to me. Would you be willing to do that?
Yes.
All right.
My partner over there.
They don't last long.
They do meet monthly.
Right.
I believe it's the second Wednesday.
Wednesday of the month.
Second Wednesday of the month at 5 p.m. So, all righty.
We don't start till January, right?
It would start in January, yes. So item 4D, consideration of revision to the Board Operating Procedures Manual. And I believe that Mr. Neermont had some thoughts on this.
Yes, ma'am. Normally, we board members receive a lot of chain letters addressed to all of us. We can indicate that it is to all of us simply because when you look at on the top, you see all the names. And sometimes some of us respond, some don't. And if we all respond, we responded somehow in a different format. Sometimes by poor punctuation or using so-called another vocabulary that I wouldn't use, it leaves different impression of their individual opinion. And the people draw their own conclusion or they interpret it. My suggestion is, if we know these are chain letters that everyone receives it, one person respond to that on behalf of the board, rather than everybody responded differently.
How does the board feel about that?
I think that's an appropriate way that we deal with situations where one person, after conferring with the rest of the board members, makes that statement or makes that letter.
However, there are times that individually we receive emails or phone call on our own email. Then that's our responsibility to respond to it. But if it's a chain and goes to everyone, one person would be talking on behalf of the board.
And so that one person that was chosen would confer with everyone first? Can we do that legally?
I don't know the legality of it or
I
not.
don't think we can.
But my main concern is when the address says, when individually write a response, says "we,"
Yeah,
it might not be talking about me,
yeah,
you know.
right.
That is my concern.
Okay, and the way it reads right now is, you know, I have felt the freedom to respond or not respond. I mean, sometimes I always try to say, thank you for your email.
Yes.
And sometimes I go into a little bit more detail, very conscious that, you know, this is all public record, and CC it to the superintendent. You know, I'm all for electing someone among us to answer all of those, as long as I have the freedom to additionally answer those that I feel compelled to, and always CC it to Dr. Trujillo. I just remember how I felt
Yes.
before I was on the board and had some burning issues and that compelled me to write to board members, and how I felt if I got nothing in response. It's very disheartening. So anyway, that's the way I feel.
Either that, or if we write to respond, do not use "as" or "we." You
Yeah,
can say "I."
yeah,
And I think that's the spirit of what you're saying is, if you want to respond as yourself. Don't say "we think" or,
okay, yeah,
I think that's really where
That's
you're
basically.
coming from.
okay, good.
I mean, maybe we could just clarify.
On our respond is utilize, do not use "we" or "as"
Yeah.
individual.
You
I
make it
think,
very
or
clear
I
that you're
believe, or I
speaking
think.
only on yourself and not on behalf of the board.
Right.
Right, yeah. Okay.
Okay. Is everybody in agreement with that suggestion? By consensus? I would ask that Mr. Nermont, if you would get with Holly to solidify those, that policy change in writing, in our policy manual, so that we can vote on that change
No
on
problem.
Thursday. All right. Any additional discussion? Okay. That will take us to item 4E, consideration of NISD 2021-2022 COVID-19 mitigation protocols. Dr. Trujillo.
President Finch and Board, this item here, due to the fact that we have this, an ongoing conversation with regards to the mitigating factors and the things that are going on in Nacogdoches, but also in the state of Texas and across the country, we feel like this is an agenda item that will remain in conversation on a monthly basis, so that we can continue to update and with transparency to the community and to our constituents, to our teachers, to our families, and let them know what and how we are proceeding with regards to the ever-changing dynamics with regards to the mitigation of COVID. In addition to, we are regularly getting updates from the Commissioner of Education with regards to policy and statewide initiatives that are coming down the pike, and we navigate those. We want to also be transparent with our community. Wanted to also share with the board that, and with the community, that we have a daily, I wanted to make sure that the public is understanding this, we have a daily communication. The parents can actually, and our community can actually go into the website and can see the numbers on a daily basis of what that looks like So by the end of the day today, a parent can go to the website and can see what do the percentages look like with regards to staff, what does the percentages look like with regards to students. We also have that in conversation individually. I have that with each one of the board members, making sure that they're aware of those numbers. And this allows us to really evaluate when and if we need to take additional measures that we don't have in place, i.e. masks is an example. So we would be able to be informed based on numbers and percentages that we have. We also work closely with the county. We work closely with the region numbers to see exactly what does our hospitalization rate look like. We are very fortunate to have services here in Nacogdoches that provide some additional health support for our community. We are in the process, and I may ask Mr. Barton, with your consent, I may ask Mr. Tarvin to step up to the microphone. He works with regards to our COVID task force and on a regular basis and pretty much on a weekly basis, where they're updating and looking at our processes, looking at our supplies that we have. So I know, Mr. Tarvin, we've talked about desk shields. Can you step up here to the mic? Can you give us a little bit of an update? I know, for instance, we have one particular campus that we were ensuring based on enrollment and percentages. What campus is that, and how many shields have we put there within the last 72 hours, should I say?
Nettie Marshall had very few desk shields due to just wear and tear, and so in the past 72 hours, I've delivered over 100 desk shields over to them throughout the district, and they had about 50 already, so we are sitting at 150 or so right over there right now. We are in the process of getting in another 1,000 desk shields. They should be coming by the end of this week, and then we can get those out to the campuses as they need.
We're also coordinating with our local fire department and with regards to vaccinations. Can you speak a little bit? I know we have an ongoing dialogue with our fire chief with regards to that. So we know we're trying to set that up. Can you speak to that a little bit with the board?
Yes, sir. Currently, we have 2 dates coming up for any staff members or students who are needing their second round. Earlier, we gave them their first round, so we have those coming up. Right now we're waiting for Pfizer. The chief is waiting for the Pfizer vaccine so we can give them to our kids who can qualify for those. So we will be setting up additional vaccination sites and times so we can offer those to our staff and students as well.
In addition to that, I want to make sure we update our community with regards to our testing sites. We wanted to be very, very intentional in what we're doing, and I actually believe this can be a model that can serve our surrounding communities and other school districts, because right now the way the state has directed us is that individuals that are symptomatic go to the nurse's office, and then the nurse can test. Well, the nurse is also dealing with all the other issues that hit a school, and we want to make sure that we can eliminate that additional step where somebody goes into the bowels of a building to get tested, find out they are positive, then we have to contact trace everything to figure out how could we have avoided this. So can you speak a little bit as to our preliminary steps and where we're at with regards to the testing site?
Yes, sir. Thanks to some ESSER money, we are able to hire 2 additional nurses that will be able to help us out on many different levels. They'll be able to float and go where we need them to be, but we will be setting up a testing site at Margie Chumley Academy for Success, where people our staff or students can drive up, get tested early in the morning, and therefore they don't have to ever step back on campus, okay? So what will happen with these particular tests that we give, we will get the result in 15 minutes, okay? And then we enter it into a computer, and then that system in about 2 or 3 hours sends out notification of a positive or negative result. But with the personnel that we should be able to have, what we will do is we will read it within 15 minutes, And if there is a positive, we will pick up the phone and we will call them and say, look, you are positive, do not go to campus. And so we're looking forward to that. Right now, we are waiting for, we did get to do some hiring. They had to put in their 2 weeks' notice, so we were waiting for HR and for that 2 weeks' notice to be ready to go. Hopefully, within 10 days, we should be going in that direction. We should have it up and running. Hopefully, if we can do it sooner, we will.
Mr. Martin, can you elaborate also? We did not let any grass grow under our feet. The board acted pretty specifically last week with regards to a couple of items with regards to our staff. Could you give them a little bit of an update with regards to what Mr. Whitaker is doing with regards to preparing our staff with regards to what the board action was last week?
So immediately after, actually the next day after the board approved the two resolutions, one for vaccinations and the other for COVID leave days, Mr. Whitaker and the HR team sent out a notification to all employees letting them know about the board's approval and what the program was about. He started receiving immediately the COVID vaccination cards and the sign-up form that's required for the employee to earn the incentive for vaccinations. Also, they started, his team started backtracking those employees who had already been out for days for leave for COVID and starting to credit their days back with those COVID days. So it has taken off pretty quickly for HR in getting these things worked out, the resolutions worked out.
I would like to see, if we're talking about mitigating protocols, I'd like to see the numbers of staff that are actually getting vaccinated. And I mean, I would like to see that because I'm not sure how many people in our district or how many employees are actually vaccinated and not vaccinated. I know it's kind of a personal thing, but I mean, I don't know that we need to have names, but just numbers of people that are taking advantage of that.
You will have the numbers. I'm not sure if it's going to be legal for us to, you'll have the numbers by the number of payments that the district issues.
I mean, I understand that. I just would like to have some idea. Is that incentive really working, or do we need to look at something else? I guess that's what I'm saying.
And I believe you'll have some numbers pretty quickly with regards to, there's a drop dead date.
Yes.
There's a time frame. It's not going to stay open constantly, so they'll have a number and we'll be able to share that. And unfortunately, we're also navigating a whole new realm of HIPAA and FERPA, which we have never navigated through, where we have in the past, since COVID came in, really violated some things with questions, taking temperatures and all of that and recording all of that. Now we have a reset. So a lot of that, Mr. Montoya, we can actually pull through with the guidance of legal and getting that. But numbers, we will have numbers that we'll be able to share and see the impact that it is. But I will tell you this. I know one thing for a fact, and I want to make sure the community hears this. If it's one teacher that goes out and does take care of getting a vaccine, that's one teacher more than there was. And that's what we're excited. If it's 1, 2, 3, and what I'm excited about, Mr. Tarvin, his relationship with the chief, is if we have a group of people that want a vaccine, and it's maybe dismal, maybe 2 people, they will come out and they will vaccine those 2 individuals. It doesn't have to be a set number. Anybody who is wanting to get a hold of that. 2 additional items that I wanted to make sure to visit is something that the community and the world at large is talking about, is preparing for the possibility of vaccinations of students that are 12 or younger. Although we don't have that vaccine yet, this task force has been charged already. I've charged them with processes and procedures on, let's start talking about that now. So if the vaccines came online for all of our students that are 12 years or younger, we don't need to be planning then, we need to be planning now. And that's what Mr. Tarvin and the team are doing, is coming up with what does that look like? How can that partner up with our testing sites? We have a great partnership with SFA and the nursing program that's been out there with us. with the university, and we appreciate President Scott and his staff out there for working very closely with us. We also appreciate the relationship we have with the city. Now, I know this is very hot off the press. As a matter of fact, the ink hasn't even dried, because we had the commissioners meeting on Thursday of last week with regards to virtual instruction. Now, I want to make sure it's clear to everybody in the community, the number one place that a student needs to be to learn is in school. That's where we see the greatest impact of instruction. And we are not going to move to a virtual platform. However, we do have individual families that were in part of that virtual environment in the past, and they were successful, and they were asking for it. Well, at that point, the legislators had moved in and said no virtual learning. Now that has changed. The governor this last weekend did sign into effect, it was approved by the House and the Senate, that we can provide virtual. However, we will not be leaning on that direction as the primary way of instruction. We will be looking at individual students that are out there that have had a history of being in attendance and participation, as well as test results. And we'll be evaluating all that. I know Dr. Hill saw some communication that went out this weekend, and we're diving into and looking at what that may look like as we move forward. So that's another mitigating process that we're looking that will help support our families on what they want their child to receive as far as instructional. Nacogdoches will not move toward not providing virtual. We will look at the opportunities of how we can provide the best instruction for those individuals that seek that. But we also want to prepare our teachers so that we don't have teachers working in a face-to-face model all day long and then go into a virtual environment in the evenings. That's exhausting. So we want to make sure that we have the capacity of individuals that live and know how to operate in a virtual environment and be able to provide the best instruction that we can provide in a virtual setting if that's the direction we wind up going. So we're still in the planning phases of all of that. And then the last and final item that I want to make sure that we have is we have an ESSER meeting that's scheduled, that's coming up. Do we know the date for that? It's a community ESSER meeting. Lisa, do you know that one?
Is that still September 14th?
It may be, because that's the same time the high school had an event.
Is it still
It's still...
against the open house?
Yes. Well, they're not, we're trying to adjust it so it don't have a conflict with the schedule. But I wanted to make sure that the community understands that's an invitation to you. We get federal funds from the state on how to meet the needs of our classrooms. HVAC systems, what are we doing in using the federal funds to circumvent the COVID in our environment? And we want to invite our community, come out. Now look at how we're expending those funds. These are millions of dollars that are being utilized to enhance the instruction, make sure that we address the regression in learning, but also provide the safest learning environment that we have. I want to also let you know, everything you heard, you'll hear it again every month, because we want to make sure the community knows this is our number one priority, is safety and security of all our little ones and our valuable teachers that we have that are out there. We are not sitting here on a hope and a prayer that we don't get sick. We are doing everything we can to provide the safest environment for our teachers and our families that are out there. And I will say this, it may include masks in the future. It may not include masks, but we will always look at everything that's out there, and this board will be fully informed with numbers on a daily basis so that we don't wind up having a situation that we have. One is too many. And we want to ensure that this is a dialogue that we have ongoing, and we appreciate the community for sharing any information they have. Michael, do you have anything to add with regards to the mitigating?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr.
Yes, sir.
Trujillo. To answer your question, the meeting has been rescheduled for September the 20th at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom.
All righty.
I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am. We're going to do our best to make sure that we don't have conflicting schedules and that we've got an opportunity for folks to come out. And I really invite you to come out and see how the ESSER funds are being utilized with regards to the community. And President Finch, unless the board has any questions, that was pretty broad.
Beth?
I have a question about I really appreciate that we're getting those shields that we paid. I don't think they were worth the money because so many of them are just not usable again this year. But also our temperature things. Now, is that now suddenly illegal for us to have the temperature machines that we bought that were all around?
No, we still have them staged in the buildings. However, collecting the data.
Yeah.
And unless there's a necessary need, we are not going to be logging numbers. Remember last year, if we go back to last year, every adult came in, had to do a temperature, had to record it and mark it down, whatever the temperature was, even when the visitors came in. Now we have to have an opportunity, and the wonderful thing with the devices that we purchased is you can simply just walk in, and if your silhouette turns red, you've got a fever. Now, that's whenever we've got to figure out, okay, you are not going any further into this building until we can first figure out if this is a false reading, or if you do have a temperature, then we can direct that individual wherever they need to go. So we do have the temperature. We are not taking temperature on the school buses at all, but we do have all the mitigating steps on the buses. If you'll see, the buses are running with the windows open. We also have hand sanitizer. When you first walk in the bus, it just sits right there. The students can just kind of hit and go right into the bus and have a seat with regards to transportation.
Good. I want to applaud this idea of the testing side, because that is a concern. Anything we can do to keep sick people away would be very helpful. And I understand parents who are working and the kid wakes up and doesn't feel well, and you go, well, yeah, but is this really? And certainly they don't want to have to pay to get tested. So I think this is going to help a great deal, especially for the students and, of course, our staff as well. I've also, in this whole mask thing, to encourage people, we're giving them the option. And when I look at pictures from campuses of all the wonderful things they're doing, I'm a little discouraged that we not only have very few students wearing masks choosing to, but we have very few faculty as well. And I know that some other districts have looked into, not the mandate, but a plan of protection where if you have been exposed and you do not wear a mask, then you have to go home and be quarantined for certain, sort of a deterrent, to encourage them to wear. Has the task force looked into that any?
No, ma'am, we have not.
Okay.
What we're doing is we're encouraging, we're trying to set examples. When I go to the campuses, whenever the admin go to the campuses, we're wearing the masks, obviously saying thank you to those who are, but no, ma'am, we haven't looked at anything like that at this time.
Well, you might look at Garrison's website and read through what they've done and see if there's any variation, if you think that, that might help.
Absolutely. We're always evaluating, and if we hear of new and innovative ideas, we'll certainly look at those.
Okay, thank you.
My question would be, I think the target number was 7%, I think that you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
Is that of the staff, or is that combined staff and student?
Well, and really, the number is so fluid, and here's why, and I don't want to feel like I'm avoiding the question, is depending if it's a secondary campus and those teachers are part of a department, and science department, and now all of a sudden we can't provide science instruction to a group of kiddos, that's going to be a lot different, and it may not even be near the 7%, but it wipes out an entire department, which means we have a grade level and that can't receive instruction. So we're looking at it very, very closely when we find out. For instance, one example is looking at McMichael. McMichael has some numbers, but we got to figure out where are those numbers. And when we investigate, McMichael is more of their office staff.
Yes.
And so we've got to be very, very fluid as looking at those numbers and being very transparent, so that when I communicate to the board and we see those numbers, you would fully understand that, okay, this percentage, Trujillo, I thought you said 7%, and this percentage is at this % number, why are we still open? Well, we want to make sure that who is it, that is recorded to be isolated. And then we also have a wave of teachers that may or may not be on the cycle to come right back in to the school. So it's very fluid, Reverend, when you're looking at it, and that's the only reason I say that. We had a hard, fast number last year of campuses. District was 10%?
20% for the campuses and 10% for the district.
Yeah, 10% for the district and 20% on a campus. However, Nettie Marshall, it doesn't take long for that campus to get to a large percentage because it's a smaller building. So we're looking at every group of that we have that's out there, and that number could be fluid based on a particular setting, where it's elementary versus a secondary. The same thing can impact it with transportation. Transportation, we're constantly monitoring that because all it takes is several drivers, and then we don't have a busing system to transport our folks. Same thing with nutrition services when it comes to our folks serving lunches. So there are certain things that we're monitoring and that are pretty broad and dynamic, but we're looking at everything and anything that can dictate what we may have to wind up having to make as a decision. I hope, Reverend, that answers your question when we're looking at it. And I want to make sure the community hears that. When we're looking at that, is we're looking at everything. It's for everything from cafeteria to transportation and to grade levels, and it's not just one broad number to come up with. And I hope that our community can appreciate that we're looking at everything that's out there and make the best decision we can for all that are concerned.
I'm sorry. That makes me think of another question. And I really appreciate that we're doing that, because it may just be like one grade or one class that has to be quarantined or closed because suddenly it just hit them strongly, and not close down a whole school or the district. But so then that brings up the virtual again. So you mentioned that we're looking at using virtual for those who were successful in the past and who want it. I'm thinking possibly those students who are already very medically, health-wise susceptible, and so need to be removed from the classroom and showed success in the past. If we had to quarantine, we would also probably ask the teacher to continue with virtual. If, like, let's say we have a second grade class and we're going to have to quarantine them, would they continue virtually?
That's the dynamics when it comes to virtual. And Dr. Hill, you and I were in that same conference call. It's a little different than it was last year when it comes to virtual.
Okay.
We can't shut down a school and just say we're going virtual. You've got to provide day-to-day instruction.
Oh.
It's got to continue. But that allows us to be very creative on maybe looking at a cycle of, I can see it at a high school where you would have an A-B day, and you have a group of kids that might go swing into virtual or might swing into face-to-face. But we can't take a particular building and say this building has a high infection rate, we're going to go virtual. Okay. That is what the state has said, no, you can't do that. You can't shut down a school and go virtual. Oh, we can. We can do anything we want, but we wind up paying for it, and we won't get any ADA for that. And that's the same thing when you're looking at a student. For instance, if Mr. Tarbin's never been virtual and his parent wants him to be virtual, well, we don't have a history with how successful he was and if he participated in the year before. So he would not be able to participate with virtual, or maybe he could, except we get no funding for Mr. Tarvin. However, Mr. Martin over here, who's been virtual, parents wanted virtual, and we said we weren't doing it, and now we're looking at a modeling and create it, and that parent wants their child back in virtual. We've got guidelines and criteria that are ongoing to make sure that, did he test last year? And was he successful with the test? If you don't have a test, then Dr. Hill and staff will have to come up with some sort of a measurement, local assessment, to figure out how is he equivalent and can he survive in a virtual environment. We don't want to throw virtual out and just hope it sticks to the wall. The face-to-face is the #1 priority in our commitment because that stresses the families mom has or dad has to be out of work, and then you got internet issues, all kinds of things that occur. We've learned that that's not the best thing that we want to look at. However, Dr. Hill, myself, the staff, we're going to explore all of those, and we'll put a plan. Matter of fact, we have to put a plan. We have to submit our plan, and as to what that may look like. Fortunately for us, we did submit early on the exploration of a virtual. So we don't have to reinvent everything, but we can kind of go back and pick up some of the pieces. However, there are some strings attached now that were not attached before. So virtual's not as easy to slide into as it was last year. And there's also when you shut down a district. Many of the community have heard where a school district was shut down for a day or a rest of the week, that there's repercussions for that because we have to make up those days. And so I want to make sure the community understands we go into a shutdown, that means we are going to extend the school year as we move forward. But we want to make sure that if that's what needs to happen, I have no doubt that this board would stand in unison to say, let's do that. But then that's when we have to come back, and Reverend, you mentioned with masks, that's when we'd actually go back and reevaluate everything. When we come back, what does it look like when we come back to school? Are we going to look at all the mitigating steps that we have to do in order to move forward to be successful? So we're not saying no to anything, and we're not saying yes to everything. We're going to evaluate every piece that we have in order to provide the safest environment for our teachers and our students and our families.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. And that's good to know because we hear, oh, now, the state has approved virtual, and we kind of think, okay, this is going to be an easy thing we can slip in. And so it's good for everyone to realize that the state loves to attach all kinds of provisions to things. And, I sometimes think I should send them a note with the definition of independent.
Dr. Trujillo, concerning the agenda, especially the action item, what COVID-19 mitigations will we use going forward on the action agenda? So that, and I guess hypothetically what I'm saying, if we have a crazy outbreak between now and Thursday,
Yes.
How will the agenda reflect that for Thursday's meeting?
And President Finch, that can easily be as a recommendation from the administration based on numbers and data that we have. It could easily adjust in that way as we're moving forward. But we also have, and I want to make sure we're clear with this, we're not just waiting for a regular board meeting, a regular agenda review. This last week, the board wanted to have a conversation about something that they were aware of. We will entertain every opportunity to have to come back if we need to. We don't know what it may look like in a week or 2 weeks. We just came off the holiday. And 10 days from that holiday, we don't know where our kids have been and where our families went. So we don't know what those numbers are going to look like, but I can tell you, we're watching those numbers every single day, and there's two sets of numbers that the community needs to look at. It's teachers that are sick and teachers that are identified with COVID. Students that are sick and students that have been identified with COVID. We're watching both of those numbers very closely because you may be home sick, and it takes maybe a day or two to test, then we can get ahead of what needs to happen in order to make the best decision that we have. So I hope, Reverend, that answers your question, is that that action item could come as a recommendation from the administration, that could even come as a recommendation from the board itself to evaluate a mitigating step that we need to move forward. Collectively, we said we are a team of one and a decision of one, and when we sit here and we look at this, I will tell you, there's not a winning vote, there's not a failing vote. We're all voting for the best that we can do for each and every one of our kiddos, and that's what's exciting about the work that we're doing on a daily basis as a board and collectively with this administration.
President Trujillo, my main concern is the safety of our children, because the information that I've researched shows that the adults are the ones that are giving it to the children, not the children giving it to the adults. I don't know if that's true or not, but that concerns me because our kids need to be protected, and I will not back off from protecting the children of this district, and I just want put that out there because I want to see that they're in a safe environment. I don't want to see our schools closed down. I don't want to see us losing staff. We've lost one staff to the COVID, and that's one too many. And it will be devastating if we lose a child in our schools. And so I just wanted to be real clear that that's where I'm at.
Absolutely, and I would probably echo that statement there. Only one word I would change, the I. I would want to make sure the community understands that we will not let that happen. The same passion you see from Mr. Montoya, you see it from each one of these board members, and you're definitely going to hear it from me as your superintendent and my cabinet the same way. So when we speak to this, I speak to the fact that we will not let this happen. We want the best thing for our students, and I appreciate the passion Mr. Montoya has with this, but I will want to make sure that everybody understands that same passion you hear from Mr. Montoya is the same that we're going to get to from every individual on this board and the executives that are on my team. We're looking at everything that's out there. One, Mr. Montoya is too much. You're absolutely correct. And I share that sentiment with you, sir, very much.
Any additional questions? Hearing none, the board will now move to item 5 and conduct an executive closed session to discuss the items posted on our agenda pursuant to the following provisions of the Texas Open Meetings Act and as allowed by Texas Government Code Sections 551.071, 551.074, and 551.129. No voting will take place in the closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussion in closed session would take place after the board reconvenes in open session. It is now 1:06 p.m.
James, you going to be at dinner?
Would you let the record show that Mr. Montoya left at 1:49? Good, thank you. All right, are we good, Mr. Linebarger? All right. The board is now reconvening into open session at 1:55 PM. Are there any requests for future agenda items? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we adjourn.
We have a motion by Mrs. Winslow. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Reverend Irving. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. We'll see you Thursday evening.